In this video, I'm going to create the foods table view example, but I'm going to do it in Xcode 11.5. In this demonstration, I'm not going to cover everything I did in the other video, but it will illustrate for you how the process is carried out in the latest version of Xcode. I'm going to create a new Xcode project. It is going to be an iOS single view app. I am going to call this Foods Table View, and I am going to make sure it's Swift, that I'm using a storyboard for the UI, and the rest of this I can leave the way it is. I then add it to my iOS app dev projects, and I hadn't set author. I'm not going to worry about that here. So I am going to get rid of the view controller, and I'm going to create a new view controller, excuse me, iOS Cocoa Touch class next. If the subclass UI view controller isn't here, you can just start typing UI view controller, and we are going to call this Foods view controller and save it in our project. I can move this in the list, and I'm going to kind of right above the storyboard. If I select the storyboard, I have this kind of blank slate to start with. I am going to my library, type in table. I have a table view that I'm going to drag and drop onto the interface builder UI. This needs to be constrained on all of its sides. I can do that by control-click drag, or I can select the object and indicate that I want constraints on all four sides. On the top, we want it relative to the safe area. On the bottom, we want it relative to the safe area. That makes space for navigation bars at the top and toolbars at the bottom. And then we're going to say 0 points from the safe area there. And then on the sides, we are going to go to the safe area. The safe area right now in iOS on the leading and trailing sides is actually right against the edge of the view. But if they were to add things on the side and we said relative to the safe area, then our interface would automatically adjust to those things on the side. So I'm going to put 0 and 0 there and say add for constraints, and we see that the table view fills in the total area. This table view is going to need a data source and delegate to define how it is populated with cells and how it's going to respond to events. So one way of doing that is to control-click drag from the table view to the icon here at the top that represents the view controller, and selecting that we want that view controller to be the data source for the table view, and then control-click drag again from the table view to the view controller. I didn't quite click that right. Let me do that again. Control-click drag up there, leave up. And I want to now select the delegate. Notice data source already has a dot next to it, meaning the view controller is already the data source for the table view. And now we're going to also set the view controller as the delegate for the table view. If I were to hold the control key down and click on the view controller icon, we can see the referencing outlets, data source and delegate, are connected to the table view. So now I'm going back to the Foods view controller. Since this serves as a table view, delegate, and data source, we have to follow those protocols. So we're going to say that Foods view controller follows the UI table view delegate and the UI table view data source. And these protocols require that certain methods be implemented. It says here it does not currently conform to these protocols, and that would be correct because we haven't added the methods those protocols say need to be there. So one of these is number of sections. That's how many sections in the table view. Sections are like blocks of cells, and we're going to say that there is one section. Now, before I move on, this table view is going to be driven by some data. And so I have a list of foods that I'm going to have be my data. And rather than taking the time to type them out, now I've cut and paste from a text editor on the side the foods array, which contains pizza, sushi, steak, chicken, fruit, salad, and cake. So those are our foods. As we next fill in the things, that is the functions that are required for being a delegate and data source for the table view, we're going to use the table view functions, and the one that I'm interested in is how many rows there are. So if I were to type like table view and look for number of rows in section, what's going to happen is when the table wants to know how many rows there are in a section, it's going to call this function, and it's going to say, hey, to us, I've got this table view, identified by table view, and we have this section identified by some number. How many of these cells in this table view do we have in this section? And so that's what we're going to return. And above we said there's one section, so that one section is going to contain all of our foods. So we're going to say return foods.count, because that's how many rows we want. Then we need to supply the cells that are going to be in that section. So we can start typing table view, and we're looking for cell for row at index path. And so you'll notice right here, table view, cell for row at index path. Now, I had to scroll a little bit. You can actually say cell for row, and it'll bring that right to the top there. So we need to dequeue a cell from the table view because we're going to be using reusable cells. All I did so far here in Interface Builder was put a table view in Interface Builder in the view controller. So now what I gotta do is select that table view and make some choices. So first is, I do want these dynamic prototype cells, not static cells. Static cells are not driven by data, they're just fixed cells there. So we want that. How many prototype cells do we want? We have one design we want. And the style of that can be, of the section here, can be set, etc. So this one prototype cell, which I just created, and I'm going to go back again, by selecting the table view, and then here in prototype cells, setting it to 1. So here's the prototype cell. Now the question is, what style of cell? We're going to just say basic, that is, it'll just have a string in it. And we need an identifier. It says here in light gray, reuse identifier. It's like, how do we identify this resource so we can get one of these? And so I'm going to call it food cell, lowercase f, capital C. And I need to remember that because whatever I put here, I need to use in my code. Some people might put food underscore cell. Some people just might make it all lowercase food cell. It depends on your development organization and what style guide they want to follow. So we have a cell that'll hold a string of text that is identified by food cell. I go back to the view controller and I say, let cell equal, table view is passed in as a parameter so I can use it, and then on table view is dequeue reusable cell with identifier for index path. So the identifier is the one we just defined, food cell, and this thing called an index path is shown right up here. It says index path, and it says that it's the table view's cell for row at index path. This is a structure that says what section and what row this cell is in. And since it's being provided to us as a parameter, we're just going to pass that along to the dequeue reusable cell so it knows what the index path is that we are dequeuing this reusable cell for. So we have the cell, and at the bottom of the function we want to return the cell because this function expects us to return a UI table view cell. So then the cell is going to have some properties, and there is a set of properties that we could use, and the one that is the string of text that is kind of the main string in the cell is text label. If we were to use one of the other cell designs, like where there's a label and then there's another label below it, that little thing below it would be like detailed text label. So, but we want text label. So I'm going to go find that again, text label. And I can type T, oh, look at that, text label, equals, and we want to give it the food. And so we're going to say, which food? Well, foods is an array, and we can index the items in the array by putting the index in the brackets. Already said that index path is which section and row we're in. There is only one section, because we said number of sections returns 1. So the only thing we're really interested in is index path dot which row we are in, not which section, because there's only one, which row in that section we're in. The rows are numbered 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the items in the foods array are numbered 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 up. So we can use index path.row, the row of the table view cell we're in, to index into foods so that we can set the text label to that. But we've got some red underlines, and I kind of did this on purpose so we could play with fixing it. First thing is it says cell.text label, like a UI label. And UI labels can't be directly set to strings, which is the items here in the foods array. Each text label has a dot text property that is used to set the text in the label. So we took care of one issue. Another one says value of optional type UI label must be unwrapped to refer to the member of text. What we can do here is put a question mark, and what this does is says if we can unwrap this optional, do so and then proceed to do the assignment shown. If we can't unwrap this optional because it contains nil, then skip this line of code. So cells text labels text, if the label exists and we can unwrap it, will be set to the food at indexPath.row. And so we return that cell. So if I run this, and it takes a little while on the first launch of the simulator. The simulator, generally you launch it and then you just leave the simulator run. You stop it up here with the stop, but you don't actually quit it because of the time it takes for the simulator to come up. So we have an issue. It says unrecognized selector sent to instance blah blah blah. And so the question is, what went wrong here? So where I look is down here, and it says unknown class in interface builder file, exception, unrecognized selector sent. Here though, unknown class. Oh, that's right. Okay. We deleted view controller and created foods view controller. If we go to the main storyboard, drag this down a bit, and select the view controller icon, and then use the icon for identity inspection, you'll see that the class on this is set to view controller. And we really want it to be foods view controller. So now that is the appropriate view controller. So now let's run it again. So we got another exception. So let's scroll to the top of our errors. I can drag this thing bigger so I have more space to work with. It says unknown class view controller in interface builder file. I thought I just changed it. So let's go back again. So we're in the main storyboard. We're selecting this. This is foods view controller. This is foods view controller. So let's hit stop and let's run one more time. I'm not sure what I did that last run. I think I'd saved it. Maybe I didn't. But nonetheless, I ran it again after fixing my errors, and here it is working. So the next thing I want to look at is, it was mentioned in the other video that there is another way to set the data source and delegate. So I'm going to do that in code. So I'm going to take my window here and get my cursor. Why is it not dragging me right there? There it is. Make that down a little bit. Okay, so what I'm going to do is control click here on the view controller and break the data source and delegate referencing outlets. And I'm going to run this again, and we should see that we do not see anything in the table view. We don't see any errors. We also don't see anything because the table view doesn't have a data source or delegate, and therefore doesn't know how to really do anything. So we again want to set the data source and delegate, but we're going to do it in code. So if I look at foods view controller, here in these table view functions, I have access to which table view I'm working with. But here, like for example in view.did.load, I don't have anywhere here where I can access which table view I'm working with. So I need some sort of reference to the table view. So what I'm going to do is go to my storyboard, have my table view displayed, and then come up here and say that I want the assistant editor. And if this view controller is properly set to the view controller, it will put them side by side. I'm going to select the table view, control click drag inside the class above the variable foods as a property up here in the class. Leave up, it's going to be an outlet to my table view, and that outlet I'm going to call foods table view. So I'm going to put that down one line. There we have it. Foods table view is a UI table view, a referencing outlet to this table view. So I'm going to close this, go back to the foods view controller, and now that I have a foods table view here in view.did.load, I can say foods table view dot delegate equals this instance of this object in this class. So in other words, when we create a foods view controller and it runs view.did.load, we have an instance of a foods view controller and we're inside of it. And we have to refer to ourselves, and it is self. So we are setting this object as the delegate for foods table view. And then foods table view dot data source also is self, so that it is the delegate and the data source. If I run it this time, we are back to seeing the list of foods. One final thing to match the other example is I'd like to change the color of the cells. The cell, which we create DQ here, create in essence, get, is seen by cell. It has properties. One of those is background color. The different colors can be gotten off the class. So we are, I don't want to go to that. Let me go back here again. We are working with the cell. It has a background color, and the types of colors that we are working with in the UI are UI colors. And if I use the UI color and then say dot, there are colors defined on UI colors that I can use. So I could say UI color dot green. That color then will be assigned to the background color of the cell. And now that I completed my option, click on it, works here, and you can see that background color, the property on cell, is a UI color optional type, which means we need it to set it to a UI color. And if I'm holding the option key down again and clicking, this is the class UI color, and on it we have this one particular color that's defined as a property that we can, computed property that we can get from this. And so UI color green is set to the background color. So I'm going to run this, and there are the cells being green, and we could change them to blue. And we could change it to red. So in review, on your storyboard, place your table view, constrain it at all four sides to the safe area. Make sure that the table view has a data source and delegate that's either done in code like we just saw, or you control, click, drag, and you set it as an outlet on the view controller using this view controller icon. Don't forget that the view controller has a class, and it needs to be set to the view controller that we're writing, which in this case is Foods View Controller. The view controller needs to follow the UI table view delegate and data source protocols. And when you do that, it will require certain functions be written so that you are following that protocol. Minimally, we need the number of sections in our table view, how many rows are in each section, and then what each cell looks like. In future work, we'll learn how to respond to events. We'll learn how to go to a different view so that we can see something after having made a selection, and we'll expand the abilities of this as we move through the course.